The H1B Guy here, and today we're going to cover the H1B Guy news for the week ending July 31st, 2020. I wanted to take some time and thank every one of you who has watched my content in the last week. The support has just been truly amazing. Evidently, I am doing something right, and it's really good to know that I'm on the right path. So I'm just going to continue to do what I do and just wanted to say thank you so much for the support. If you're not currently subscribed, please go ahead and click subscribe or hover over the H1B icon and subscribe. Really helps me and the channel. I want to start the news this week by going back in time to two articles that have not been discussed here on the H1B Guy. June 24th, 2020, in an article written by Zachery Eanes for the News&Observer titled Trump's Suspension of H1B Visas Could Hurt North Carolina Businesses and Schools, Advocates Warn. Quote, North Carolina is a heavy user of H1B visas, especially by the Triangle's technology companies and universities. In 2016, companies in the state requested more than 35,500 H-1B supported positions, according to the Department of Labor, with an average wage of $78,870. However, only a small fraction of those requests are filled. According to an analysis by the Pew Research Center from 2010 to 2016, the Durham-Chapel Hill metro area had 11,300 H-1B visa approvals, or around 4.1% approvals for every 100 workers. That was the third highest concentration in the country, Pew found. Over the same time frame, the Charlotte and Raleigh metro areas each had 4,400 H-1B approvals. Computer giant IBM, Duke University, UNC Chapel Hill ranked among the largest applicants for H-1B visas in the state. The average salary for an H-1B worker in Durham Chapel Hill was $84,700. Cary-based SAS has long turned to H-1B visas to fill skill gaps. We have a difficult time filling these heavily analytical-oriented positions. The people that can help create new software using the latest, most advanced analytical techniques, SAS co-founder and CEO Jim Goodnight told the News&Observer in 2016. For example, to find a PhD in operations research, it takes us almost 2 years on average. I think this is going to hurt American jobs, said Rao, who's a member of the New American Society. Sooner or later, people are going to say, you know what? If I'm in China, I'm not going to Silicon Valley or North Carolina. Do we want the next Zoom to be started in North Carolina, or do we want it to be done in India, China, Germany, or Canada? Raleigh immigration lawyer John Penix said the new order is going to hurt many of his clients, which aren't just tech companies looking to find software developers. He said many H-1B visa holders work in healthcare or in school systems, especially in rural areas where it's hard to recruit recent graduates from U.S. schools. Many of these workers, like frontline health workers, are acutely needed now because of the coronavirus pandemic, he added. Penix, who works with several public schools, said many were planning on having H-1B sponsored teachers join in the fall. Now, the earliest they might join is January, though he believes the current suspension could portend further permanent restrictions. No surprise here, as RTP has long been considered one of the leading regions in technology and innovation in our country, employing over 4% of the total H-1B population in the U.S. Another data point that I find very interesting is the average annual salary for H-1B employees in the Triangle, which was varying between $78,000 to about $85,000, but the key word being average. Is that annual salary higher or lower than you expected? I'd say for me, it comes right about where I expected. About 85K would have been my guess. I also think it's very interesting to hear an immigration attorney bring up educators on H-1B visas and the impact on the shortage of resources in this field. While the H1B guy here primarily focuses on the STEM side of the H1B visa, there's no denying the importance of the H1B visa in the education and medical sectors. July 17th, 2020. In an article written by Surabhi Agarwal for Economic Times titled Trump's H1B visa suspension won't impact us in short term, says HCL CEO C Vijayakumar. When asked about the current immigration ban, C Vijayakumar answered, quote, "It's unfortunate that there has been significant changes and restrictions on the visas. In the short term, I don't see any impact for our business or even other service providers' business. But if this continues for the long term, there needs to be a little more thinking on how we can fulfill some of the demand for the higher end skills since customers are looking for more physical presence, even though that's come down significantly." When asked about outsourcing, C. Vijayakumar answered, "I wouldn't just say just India as such, but customers are looking at right shoring in terms of where the work should be done. And so I would think offshoring and overall outsourcing propensity is going to increase. We're already seeing it in a lot of segments. Clients who were a little bit hesitant to do large scale outsourcing are definitely looking at it now. And that is the real benefit. You can replace your operating cost. So outsourcing spend will only increase in the quarters and years to come." When asked about the 50-50 rule, C. Vijayakumar answered, "This is going to be a very, very involved exercise because we need to discuss with our clients. We need to look at the exact nature of the work and how we can ensure privacy even in a work from home model. How can we monitor some of the deliverables more effectively? That is a very involved topic. So we're looking at it, but to get to a model, it will take several months." There's a lot of interesting information that was provided in this interview, and I wanted to bring it up today on the news because I haven't really seen it discussed elsewhere. HCL is one of the major players in the integrator space. H1Bs are a significant portion of their employment population, specifically in the New Jersey, New York metro area. As stated in the interview, they've accumulated $2 billion in cash. Wow. Some of us barely have $20 in cash right now. Am I right? We've talked about outsourcing a good bit on the H1B guy here recently, and you see C. Vijayakumar only go on to mention that it's going to grow in the coming months and years. As we answered yesterday on the H1B guy responds, it's all about the money. We're talking about an extremely powerful entity in HCL who appears to be in a position of power for the foreseeable future. July 24th, 2020. In an article written by Andy Semotiuk for Forbes titled U.S. Immigration Shutdown Looms as Congress Ponders What's Next, quote, Senate Appropriations Committee Vice Chairman Patrick Leahy from Vermont and Appropriations Subcommittee on Homeland Security Ranking Member John Tester from Montana have sent a letter dated July 21st, 2020 to the Department of Homeland Security Acting Secretary Chad Wolf and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Deputy Director for Policy Joseph Edlow, calling on the agency's leadership to postpone plans to furlough 13,000 USCIS employees after revised revenue estimates showed that USCIS will actually end the fiscal year with a surplus rather than the deficit claimed. The letter said in part, a surplus is certainly a stark contrast to the revenue forecast provided to Congress earlier this year that indicated a $571 million deficit for fiscal year 2020. Yet despite this welcome reversal in revenue estimates, USCIS has perplexingly chosen to proceed with furloughs of over 13,000 federal employees. During this pandemic, with record unemployment, needlessly forcing these hardworking Americans into unemployment will crush morale of the workforce and put an untold number of families into unnecessary financial distress. The letter called on USCIS to reverse itself regarding the furloughs. This letter and Leahy's intervention bought another month before furloughs began. Commenting on this problem, American Immigration Lawyer Association President-elect Alan Orr said, quote, the USCIS budget is in dire straits because the agency has discouraged new applicants, doubled the amount of money it spends on fraud prevention, and tripled what it spends on vetting. Indeed, as Orr's organization points out, in recent years, the agency has implemented various policies that have served to needlessly delay processing, such as eliminating USCIS deference memo that required respecting previous immigration decisions and cases, routinely suspending premium processing services, mandating unnecessary in-person interviews, in many cases adopting burdensome regulations such as public rules, charges, issuing requests for evidence documents for information already in the agency's possession, and failing to reuse biometric data. The point that Orr makes is that USCIS needs to be held accountable for their budget shortfalls, and there is a need to ensure that any funding provided by Congress is conditioned on key changes related to transparency, fiscal responsibility, and efficiency. However, it seems short-sighted to level criticism at USCIS without mentioning the impact of the new policies that were adopted by the White House that have added to the agency's burden. Why do you guys think Forbes is covering this topic and other information news so heavily with Andy and Stuart Anderson, whose articles we've discussed on this channel in the past few weeks? Well, other than the fact that the coverage gets about 200 hits a week on these posts on Forbes, the answer is that Forbes follows the money. They understand the economic impact of USCIS furloughing 60% of its workforce and what that impact will look like on all immigration benefits, but specifically those applying for valid work authorization. July 27th, 2020, in a post written by Sarah Butcher for eFinancial Careers titled, Do Banks Employ H-1B Visa Holders on Low Salaries? So I'm going to read the entire post because wait till the end of it and we'll get to it. But if there's a topic guaranteed to invoke the wrath of anyone who thinks that underemployed Americans have lost jobs to underpaid migrants, it's H-1B visas. Long targeted by Trump as the scourge for the U.S. labor market, the issuance of new H-1B visas was suspended in late June, ostensibly as the result of the coronavirus outbreak. However, workers with visas that are being renewed of that were approved prior to the hiatus are still lined up to start work at major banks later this year. Some are on comparatively low salaries. Goldman Sachs, for example, has around 50 analysts with H-1B visas on salaries of under $60K, starting at its offices at Dallas and Salt Lake City in the coming months. Over half of renewals that are paid $50K are less. JP Morgan has an H-1B holding hedge fund analyst starting in Boston on a salary of $60K. Morgan Stanley has an associate based in Maryland on $66K. While 50 to 60K may sound generous given that analysts and associates are entry-level positions in the banking hierarchy, it seems less lavish compared to the going rate for a first-year front office investment banking analyst on Wall Street of 85 to 95K. On this basis, H-1B visa holders might seem underpaid. Needless to say, however, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Boston, and Maryland aren't Wall Street, and banks don't typically locate their highest paid jobs there. Goldman Sachs, for example, employs many of the people working for its retail bank, Marcus, in Dallas and Salt Lake City, along with technologists and back and middle office employees who work for its federation. Whether they're hired on H-1B visas or not, these staff are inevitably less well remunerated. Pay scale puts the average operations analyst at Goldman Sachs in Dallas between 40 to 67K. Given that analysts can have varying levels of experience, that range is less likely to be the result of seniority rather than nationality. By comparison, Goldman hires H-1B visa holders in New York City. It generally pays them the going rate. This year alone, the firm applied for around 55 H-1B visas for first-year analysts in New York City, at the standard salary of $85K. JP Morgan applied for multiple H1B visas for investment banking division analysts on the same rate, plus a handful on salaries of $90K. This doesn't mean the H1B visa system is never abused by the banking industry. For the most part, however, banks use H1B visas to access an overseas talent pool, which is paid a fair rate. H1B visa holders aren't undercutting U.S. bankers. They're working as peers alongside them. While I agree with the last point made, I pretty much disagree with everything in this article. I don't see any evidence of proof or documentation of where the author got these numbers, but I sure would love to see proof where analysts are awarded H1B visas at 50K or less, even 60K or less. I've never personally seen wages that low for an H1B in my 16 years of staffing. Literally never seen it. Yes, I've seen salaries in the high 60s and low 70s, but that was very rare and also about 5 to 6 years ago when those numbers were much more common. If I'm being honest, this article just comes across as straight up fear mongering. Do yourself a favor. Do not, under any circumstance, read the comments section on this article. It literally will make your brain hurt. July 29th, 2020. In a post written by Ananya Bhattacharya for nonpareil.com titled, "Despite waiting for years, some Indian immigrants are now giving up their green card dreams." Quote, 38-year-old Amy first went to America to study at Carnegie Mellon University in 2006. Both he and his wife, who works at one of the world's top biotech companies, are on H1B, a non-immigrant visa, allowing foreigners to live and work in the U.S. One of May's previous employers applied for his green card in 2011. Almost a decade later, a green card still eludes him. We've been waiting patiently for our green card since 9 years now, and it will likely take another 10 plus years till we get it, says May, who, like other Indians in America whom we spoke to for this story, asked that we publish only their first names to avoid drawing attention from U.S. Immigration Services. Of the total 1 million green cards given out every year, just 140,000 are for employment-based applicants. The majority of the rest goes to family-based applicants. And because of the annual 7% country cap on green card allocations in the employment route, Indians face unprecedented backlogs. The bottom line is that the H-1B system is old and has many flaws, but has become the main vehicle for a great foreign-born talent to enter the U.S. either directly or after being employed as a student on OPT visas, says Ron Honarvo, the CEO of HomeIs, an online network for expats and foreign-born nationals around the world. There are super talented employees that totally rely on this visa for several years with a very slim opportunity to evolve to a better visa or a permanent residency. By the start of 2030, the green card backlog will exceed 2.4 million petitions, virtually ending all legal employment immigration from India and China. The countries with the most employment-based green card petitions, the Cato Institute's immigration policy analyst David Beer wrote in a March 2020 brief. According to the Cato Institute, the number of Indians applying for permanent residency in Canada has doubled since 2016. May too started looking into migrating to Canada around a year ago, citing uncertainty, the political rhetoric, and the constant anxiety related to the American legal immigration process. The family is in the final stages of getting permanent residency in Canada. July 30th, 2020, USCIS news release, application period open for citizenship and assimilation grant programs. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is accepting applications for 2 funding opportunities under the Citizenship and Assimilation Grant Program. The grant opportunities mandated by Congress and funded with appropriations rather than the agency's operating funds will provide up to $10 million in grants for citizenship preparation programs in communities across the country. USCIS seeks to expand availability of high-quality citizenship and assimilation services throughout the country with these two grant opportunities. Citizenship Instruction and Naturalization Application Services. This grant opportunity will fund up to 33 organizations that offer both citizenship instruction and naturalization application services to lawful permanent residents. The Refugee and Asylee Assimilation Program. This grant opportunity will fund up to 6 organizations to provide individualized services to lawful permanent residents who entered the U.S. under the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program or were granted asylum. Since beginning in 2009, the USCIS Citizenship and Assimilation Grant Program has awarded approximately $92 million through 434 grants to immigrants serving organizations in 39 states and the District of Columbia. I know the H1B guy hasn't said very many nice things recently about USCIS, but it really is nice to hear them funding grants for citizenship and assimilation programs. Let's just hope that the fees are actually being used for their appropriate intent, because that's a lot of nonprofit donation distribution dollars. And then finally, breaking news from today, July 31st, 2020. USCIS adjusts fees to help meet operational needs. Here's the full release. Today, the Department of Homeland Security announced a final rule that adjusts fees for certain immigrant and naturalization benefit requests to ensure U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services recovers its cost of services. Unlike most government agencies, USCIS is fee-funded. Fees collected and deposited in the Immigration Examinations Fee Account fund nearly 97% of USCIS's budget. As required by federal law, USCIS conducted a comprehensive biennial fee and review and determined that the current fees do not recover the cost of providing adjudication and naturalization services. DHS is adjusting USCIS's fees by a weighted average increase of 20% to help recover its operational costs. Current fees will leave the agency underfunded by about $1 billion per year. USCIS is required to examine incoming and outgoing expenditures and make adjustments based on that analysis, said Joseph Edlow, USCIS Deputy Director for Policy. These overdue adjustments and fees are necessary to efficiently and fairly administer our nation's lawful immigration system, secure the homeland, and protect Americans. The rule accounts for increased costs to adjudicate immigration benefit requests, detect and deter immigration fraud, and thoroughly vet applicants, petitioners, and beneficiaries. The rule also supports payroll, technology, and operations to accomplish the USCIS mission. The rule removes certain fee exemptions, includes new nominal fees for asylum applicants, and reduced fee waivers to help cover the cost of adjudication. The final rule also encourages online filing by providing a $10 reduction in the fee for applicants who submit forms online that are electronically available from USCIS. Online filing is the most secure, efficient, cost-effective, and convenient way to submit a request with USCIS. USCIS last updated its fee structure in December of 2016 by a weighted average of 21%. For a full list of changes and a complete table of final fees, see the final rule. The final rule is effective October 2nd, 2020. Any application, petition, or request postmarked on or after this date must include payment of the new correct fees established by this final rule. Well, here it is. USCIS's plan to overcome the projected budget deficit. Pretty sure everyone could foresee this coming. Now, are they still looking for the $1.2 billion bailout from Congress as well? I'm going to guess that answer is yes. So, 3 very interesting takeaways from this news release. 1, 20% increase in all filing fees. 2, a $10 reduction of electronic filing when applicable. I'm actually going to give you a break if you file electronically. And 3, that this is the first fee increase since 2016, which at the time was a 21% increase. No surprise to see the continued increase of a fee-based model, which accounts for 97% of USCIS's total operational budget. And that's the news for the week ending July 31st, 2020. I wanted to just thank everyone who has taken the time to watch this video until the end. I really appreciate all the support that I continue to receive. I'm just humbled, and I want you to know that I'm going to continue to push to provide you with the best, most current information possible. If you can, and as always, please like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. The H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.